Alright guys, 2017 is winding down and it seems like everybody's making their, top 5, top 10 distros of the year. My channel has only been up and running, about 3 months. But I thought, it would be good for me to review my top 5 distros of 2017, and I'm going to stick with distros that I actually reviewed on this channel. So that is what we're going to do today, the top 5 distros of 2017. I will say my criteria for making this top 5 distros for 2017 video, I'm going to focus on distros that I find the most interesting in terms of development and those that are delivering the best user experience, those that place the greatest emphasis on user experience. So I'm going to try to not put a whole lot of my personal bias in this list, because my personal bias, if I listed my favorite distros of 2017, most or all of the list would probably be distros based on Debian stable and running minimal desktop environments like LXDE, LXQT, or the OpenBox window manager. Not a very interesting list, and while I may love those distros, the majority of Linux desktop users out there, not so much. So I'm going to, again, stick to distros I thought were doing the most in terms of development and the greatest emphasis on user experience. So here we go. Alright, number 5, Peppermint OS 8. I really loved Peppermint OS 8 when I reviewed it. Now, again, I do like minimal desktop environments. I like things like LXDE, XFCE, LXQT, OpenBox, Fluxbox, those kind of, desktop environments and window managers. But Peppermint OS was really interesting because it was a hybrid desktop environment. It was this weird kind of creation of mixtures of LXDE. There was an LXDE session, but it used the XFCE panel rather than the LXDE panel. It used the Whisker menu instead of the LXDE menu. It had a mixture of LXDE apps, XFCE apps, and even some apps that were not part of the suite of programs for those desktop environments. It had, a couple of GNOME apps thrown in there here and there. It had a really nice suite of software installed by default. So that is why it made the list here, even though it's kind of geared to be a minimal desktop environment, a minimal distro. It really provides an excellent user experience. Any new Linux user would be right at home running this distro. If they have an older computer that can't run something like GNOME or KDE or Unity, Peppermint OS is probably where I would go to first for a user like that if I was installing this, on a system for a new Linux user. Peppermint OS is built on the Ubuntu LTS, so it's rock solid stable. It had beautiful theming and wallpapers too. When I reviewed Peppermint, the theming was great. It had a bunch of really high quality wallpapers installed by default, and of course performance, being LXDE/XFCE, lightweight, ran very fast, even in VirtualBox. On physical hardware, I'm sure it would just be blazing fast. So number 5, Peppermint OS 8. Alright, our number 4 distro of 2017 is Korora. Korora 26. I really loved Korora 26 when I reviewed it, and I likened it to being Linux Mint. What Linux Mint is to Ubuntu, Korora is to Fedora. It is Fedora, but it provides, all that third-party proprietary, software that you really need to have a proper desktop experience. The other thing I loved about Korora was the beautiful theming, the way they set up the GNOME desktop. It is not the plain vanilla GNOME shell that Fedora ships with that is not very user-friendly. It doesn't look good, it's just not attractive. Korora was beautiful. Beautiful theming. It had some GNOME extensions installed by default, such as the dash to dock, which really, I think would be great for new users. They expected some kind of dock or panel to be on the screen. Beautiful icon set installed by default. I think they were using maybe the New Mix theme, I forget which icon theme they were using, but anyway, I was just blown away when I reviewed Korora. Very easy install, quick install, and again, I wouldn't change a thing about that GNOME desktop environment that it ships with. You could get a lot of work done in Korora. So Korora is our number 4 distro of 2017. And our number 3 distro of the year is Manjaro KDE. Manjaro KDE was the very first Linux distro I reviewed on this channel, and I was blown away by it. I knew as soon as I sat down to make a top 5 distro of the year video, Manjaro KDE was definitely going to be on the list. I wasn't sure where I would put it. Again, if I was doing this list and letting some of my personal biases kick in, Manjaro KDE might be my favorite distro of the year. Maybe. I'm going to put a couple of things ahead of it, though, because I also wanted to focus on development, and the projects ahead of it are doing some really interesting things in terms of development. But the Manjaro KDE distro was very, very, it was a beautiful Plasma 5 desktop. It was easy to install, gave me great performance too. I ran it, of course, in VirtualBox, and for KDE running inside of VirtualBox, it was pretty fast. I've been using that virtual machine. I still have it installed on this system, this KDE version of Manjaro, and I run it all the time. I've made some videos of me in Manjaro, not focusing on that I'm running Manjaro, but a lot of app videos that I review. I install them on that Manjaro installation. I also run that virtual machine sometimes on a full triple monitor setup. Again, no performance problems. So I've been running Manjaro KDE in that virtual machine for about 2.5 months, and I've had no breakages. I've been updating the system. You always wonder about rolling release. You're going to have little minor breakages every now and then, or possibly major breakages. Nothing. I've had no issues whatsoever in 2.5 months of running it. It's just been great. So great that I had actually considered possibly installing Manjaro KDE on my main system. Maybe. That's for a future video. I asked you guys, what I should install on my production machine. I was going to install something new on the new year. Manjaro KDE I was giving strong consideration to, but I think I'm going to go in a different direction. But again, that's a future video. Alright, the number 2 distro of the year, Deepin 15.5. Now, why does Deepin 15.5 make the number 2 distro of the year? Well, it's all about, I mentioned development. This custom-built desktop environment of theirs, the Deepin desktop environment, is super user-friendly. It's well thought out, and it is gorgeous. One of the most gorgeous desktop environments, it is the most beautiful desktop environment ever for Linux. The custom-built Deepin apps, they're great too. I mean, they have a full suite of custom software. Not all custom software, but they have their own, like, music player, video player, terminal, some backup apps. Really, really good stuff from the Deepin development team. I was really impressed with Deepin. So much so that I had actually thought about maybe installing Deepin on physical hardware. Thought about maybe throwing it on my laptop, for example, which is currently running the LTS version of Ubuntu. Deepin is based on Ubuntu, so I know my laptop will probably be fine with Deepin. Anyway, Deepin 15.5, there's really not much else to say about it. I mean, Deepin is doing big things. I mean, they are just blowing up. You see a lot of chatter about them on the internet, any kind of tech blogs, Linux blogs. Every release of Deepin just keeps getting better and better. For Windows users, for Mac users, when they see Linux, this is what we should be showing them. This desktop environment, this distro. Because this will just blows things like Windows 10 out of the water as far as, look and feel. This is something that we can be proud of as Linux users. When we show them things like, the plain GNOME shell and Fedora, or even something like just the vanilla Unity theme in Ubuntu. No, that's not something that's just going to blow the pants off a Mac user or a Windows 10 user. But this would impress them. Deepin 5, or excuse me, Deepin 15.5, the number 2 distro of 2017. And the number 1 distro of the year. It's got to be Solus Budgie. I love the Budgie desktop environment. It is one of the best of these newer custom-built desktop environments in terms of usability, simplicity. You know, it has all the features you need, none of the extra stuff that just gets in the way. It's a fork of GNOME, I believe, but it's, you know, GNOME done in a smart, sensible way. I also love Solus because it's a independent distro. You know, they're doing their own repos. You know, this is not, you know, another Debian distro or RPM distro. It's not some respin of Arch or Gentoo or SUSE or anything like that. You know, they are building this thing from the ground up. And it is a rolling release distro, but stable. At least that's what, you know, I hear from users. I haven't lived in Solus myself. I've got a virtual machine up and running, but I've only had that for about a month. But I've had no issues with it, and I've been running it a little bit. Has their own, you know, custom package manager. It has a beautiful look and feel to it, beautiful theming. Real professional looking product. The distro is professional looking. Their website, everything about it just looks professional, and very big community behind it too, and it's growing rapidly. Solus has skyrocketed in popularity on, you know, sites like DistroWatch, for example. So Solus is, I mean, just skyrocketing. It is on the uptick. It is on a meteoric rise, really. And I think very, very soon Solus may be where, you know, the Linux enthusiasts that want a rolling release distro, this may be where a lot of them end up rather than Arch. And that's a big statement because Arch has been a very, very popular distro for many, many years, especially for the Linux enthusiast crowd. But Solus, I mean, they may take a chunk away from that crowd. So Solus Budgie, my number 1 distro of 2017. So that was my top 5 distros of the year. Number 5, Peppermint OS. Number 4, Korora. Number 3, Manjaro's KDE edition. Number 2, Deepin 15.5. Number 1, Solus Budgie. I'm going to throw a wild card in there. Just outside of the top 5, I really wanted to find a spot for Ubuntu Mate 17.10. Great distro. And that pretty much winds down 2017. I'm recording this video on the 23rd of December, so tomorrow is Christmas Eve. I will continue to make a few videos, though, between now and the new year. The channel is not going to be on vacation. I will probably make another 4 or 5 videos between now and the new year. I'll do at least a couple of more distro reviews, maybe a couple of more app reviews. Maybe not put out the kind of output that I've been putting out. You know, it is the holidays after all. I'm going to be kind of busy. I will be traveling a little bit. So that is pretty much the schedule for 2017. Again, I'll put a few videos out. One video I definitely will make before the new year, though. I will announce what I've decided to go with on my main machine. Again, I made a video asking you guys for input on what to install on my production machine here. I'm going to wipe out my current instance of Ubuntu LTS that's been running on this machine for a few years now, and I'm going to install something else. I think I've made up my mind. I'm going to take a couple more days to think about it, but I think I know what I'm going to go with, so stay tuned for that decision. Anyway, I'll end this video of wishing you guys Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah for our Jewish friends out there, and of course, have a Happy New Year. Peace, guys.